All right, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure for me to have Mike Rhodes here. As you can see, there's someone else in the room with me today. And before I hand it over to Mike, just going to be letting you know what we're going to be doing in this video. And we're actually going to be taking a walkthrough tour of Mike's product, which is the paid version of his Performance Max script. As you could probably imagine, just with the YouTube channel of my size, I get requests pretty much multiple times a week to do product reviews. I've never really used any external products outside of the Google suite of tools, so Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and of course the Google Ads dashboard. And a main reason for that is I just haven't seen the value in them. But in this case, I'm not just making an exception, I'm actually making a recommendation. This is a product that me and my team have been using now for over 18 months, and we see a super high level of value in it. And that's why what we wanted to do in this video is do a complete tour of Mike's going to give some explanations, and then we're going to jump into some questions and just give some insights into how we use this data, because that's the power in this script is, Performance Max can be a great tool. One of the downsides is you don't get lots of data, and I'll hand it over to Mike because he has solved that problem for all of us. How are you going, Mike? It's great to have you back on my channel. I think you're the first person as well that's been on my channel twice. So I have no awards to give you, but congratulations.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be back. Yeah, the PMAX black box. That's what this is really all about, and trying to dig into some of the data, which curiously is there hiding behind the scenes in a few different places. All I've done really is just pull it in from all those different places, stitch it together, and try and turn that data into useful information. And then there's a little bit at the end that we'll get to around turning that information into insights, which I think can solve the blank page problem for a busy digital marketer. But really it's just about shining a light on some of that data and making it a bit more useful. And that's where it all started. I'll dive into a campaign that or a tab here that we were chatting about before we hit record. This little bit here, this is where it all started, of being able to chart over time where Google is spending your PMAX budget. So I break it down into these 4 areas: shopping, shopping ads essentially, video, YouTube, display network, and then sort of search/other. And there's a little bit of messiness to this. We don't know exactly where Gmail and Google Maps fits into this these days. Google don't give any data around that. But just being able to chart that over time was where this all started. Yeah, as you say, 18, even 24 months ago, because we were doing this by hand. We'd figured out a way to pull data out of various reports inside Google and then chucking numbers into spreadsheets and doing this all by hand to give us a bit of a sort of snapshot in time. Where is it today? Where is it this week? But then being able to chart it over time. And when you sort of see things like this, where you see this massive spike here in search cost and shopping costs dropping right down, I think another campaign in here had a similar sort of thing. At least if you know that, if you know, hey, this campaign's starting to go off the rails, Google's deciding to show a bunch of search ads instead of shopping ads, then at least you can make some changes. You can make some changes to budget. You can make some changes to target ROAS, try and get it back on track. Diving in and, as we'll see in a minute, which products are showing in this campaign and really digging into the details. At least then you're armed, because some people will say, yeah, but what's the point of having a script? There's nothing you can do with PMAX. And I don't like that thinking that you have no agency. There's lots that you can do. You can change creative, you can change bids, as we've said, you can change asset groups and audiences. And at least now you can see what happens when you make those changes.
Yeah, that's what I do love about this script, is because, I'm sure you'd probably be in the same mind thought as me, is that the best Google Ads campaigns I've always found is where you as the Google marketer is looking at data and making some observations, but then you're also giving Google room to do its order optimizations things. And I know there's a bit of a pendulum in it, and there's a whole heap of factors. People don't 100% trust Google, which I'm not in that camp as well. But I think you do have to give Google room to do some of these things, and that's what I love about this script. Is what I didn't like is that we were kind of being forced to blindly follow Google. Whereas this way, if we can get the data, we can then make some further top-level decisions to control the spending in the areas that we want it to be controlled in.
Yeah, and look, we've both been in this game a long time, right? We know that you do kind of have to lean into some of these things that Google releases. You can't just stick your head in the sand and say, no, I'm going to do it the way I've always done it. I'm not going to use these new things that Google brings out, because we know that they've sort of, at least in the past, often put their thumb on the scale a little bit, and you're going to get more impressions. You're going to get more love from the Google machine if you do things the way they want to do it. But exactly what you said, you don't want to do that blindly and just completely trust in it and throw all your budget there. You want to keep an eye on the AI. You want to see what's happening so you can at least take some of those actions. And then this is just, grown and grown and grown on top of that.
And you and I have also been around long enough to see that there's sometimes little, we can call them black hack strategies, or when you try to go up against Google, you can see some success. It can even be successful sometimes, for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, but eventually you see it tank.
Well, I was going to say, and they've got form here, right? I mean, if I'm old enough to remember the Google slap way back in 2007, 2008, and they've done this often. They sort of sit back, watch what's going on, let it go, and then bang, one day they'll change the rules. They'll get rid of all the crap that they don't want and say, this is the way we're doing it from now on. And they've done that multiple times over the journey. So kind of need to lean into their way a little bit. But you want to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, but you're definitely not just handing over your credit card and saying, Google, spend my money, because they will happily do that and they'll happily waste it. So it's just getting that balance right. So let's jump back into this first script. So probably for me, the thing I really like, if you go back to the account tab, because there was something I just wanted to point out there that I find really powerful. So the first thing that really got me interested in this script was, and remembering when it first came out, we weren't even getting asset group level data. So the first powerful thing that we really found in our campaigns was just over, if you can just sort of highlight that campaign spending, I really found the value in trying to find out, well, this is what we're spending on shopping, and this is our conversion value on shopping. This is what we're spending on search, and this is our conversion value on search. So I'd be looking at different things. And one of the things I would look at, let me just look at the lines there. I'd be looking at, in terms of this campaign that you've given us, so we would go with the search cost. So let's look at the PMAX zombies. So in shopping, you're spending 30,000. In search, we're only spending 13,000. So we know that about 66%, my percentages may be wrong, there's a lot more getting spent on shopping than search. So what then I would then start to look at is go, well, that's a potential option for us to go through and review to find out what are the top performing search terms and add in a supporting search campaign. Because we go there, we know search is converting.
And it's working.
Yeah, so we know it's working. Exactly. What we want to do now is if we set up a separate search campaign, let's now push and force Google to spend more money, because we do know that even if we've got a search campaign running with exact match keywords, so we can, as we'll get to it later, we can use this script to find the top performing search terms. If we set them as exact match, we know that that search campaign is going to take precedence. We're going to get more spend. It also allows this campaign then to spend even further money on shopping, because shopping is performing well. For the first time ever, I'm giving a personal recommendation for an external Google Ads product. Now, the reason for up until this point that I've never recommended any Google Ads tools, especially paid Google Ads tools, is because I just have never found a product that I see value in and that I trust enough to put my name behind it. That was the case up until now, where I'm personally recommending for you to use Mike Rhodes' Performance Max script. I've been using this script myself for the last 18 months in my own business, and we have found it to be the most powerful tool that we can use in order to get extra data so we can increase the performance of our Performance Max campaigns. We know that the most profitable Google Ads campaigns occur when you can see the most accurate data so that you can make the best optimization decisions, which then allows Google to do its thing. One of the main drawbacks with Performance Max, and one of the frustrations with Performance Max, is that people feel that they are blind. They don't have the data in order to make the correct decisions. And this is where Mike Rhodes' Performance Max script solves all of that. The tutorial you're watching right now shows you the level of detail that you get with Mike Rhodes' Performance Max script. And you can get all of this data for you and your campaigns for only a one-time payment of $199. And for me, the amount of value that you get for that $199 will more than pay for itself within the first month. Now, also as an extra add-on, if you purchase Mike Rhodes' Performance Max script with the affiliate link below, you can also have the chance to win 2 separate one-on-one private coaching calls with me. And what we'll do is, on the first call, we'll go through, review your account, give some recommendations, and then we'll have a follow-up coaching call 2 to 3 months down the track so we can see the results in your campaign and start to make your next strategic moves. So if you would like to not only get Mike Rhodes' Performance Max script, but also have the opportunity to have 2 hours of coaching, which has over $3,000 of value, with me. All you need to do is to follow that affiliate link in the description below. But right now, let's get back into today's training with Mike Rhodes.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into the search categories. The other my big takeaway when we first started running this too is look how little video and display there is. So this is showing you across the entire account. This is cost by channel and conversions by channel. This is giving you that campaign split. Again, like absolute values here in terms of cost and in terms of conversions. And then for each individual campaign, you just choose that from the drop down. Everything changes. So that's showing it over time. But again, hardly any video, hardly any display. And 2 years ago when PMAX came out, we were constantly having these conversations with clients like, look, it's going to show your ads everywhere. We need image, we need videos. And this really quickly told us those clients that were taking 2-3 months to get us the perfect video, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because it's less than 1% of your spend. You're delaying the launch of a profitable campaign because you want everything to be perfect. And actually, back in the early days, we would do all sorts of silly tricks because, as you know, and many people that have run PMAX know, Google will often create a video for you, either based off the display assets that you give it, or even these days off the product images that it finds in your product feed. And it builds a PowerPoint presentation from 2005 that my daughter could have done a better job of and starts running that on YouTube. And clients would show us this. What the hell is this? This isn't my ad. From a brand safety point of view, it's horrible. So we would do things like load a video that we knew was going to get disapproved because that sort of blocked the AI from then showing one of these auto-generated videos. Or back in the really early days, you could actually go in and delete the auto-created video and play this game of constantly deleting it. And then it would go and create a new one. Then you delete it, keep going round and round. But this just proved really quickly that it just wasn't worth worrying about.
And the other thing that you would see as well is you'd see very often that sometimes YouTube and display would skyrocket in maybe the first week or so, and then very quickly it would revert. And the highest percentage we've ever seen on one of our campaigns that we've run this script on was, I think it was a 5% on YouTube, but that was for an e-commerce brand that had lots and lots of video content, like high quality video content that they would update all the time. And even with that, it was 5%.
Yeah. Now, bear in mind, I don't get to see anybody's data. People often ask me like, what trends do you see? I don't see anybody's this. They get the script, they install it on their account. It's their spreadsheet, unless they choose to share the spreadsheet with me because they want to talk about something or maybe debug something. I don't see any data. I have seen display as high as 30% on some campaigns that I've chatted to people on. But usually, and I'm reminded of one that's really top of mind for me, it was an account with about 15, 16 different PMAX campaigns. Most of them had a T-ROAS of around 5 or 6. These two campaigns, for whatever reason, that the client wanted to run these low because, we want to be on YouTube, we want to be on display. I think they were running from memory. I'm slightly making this up, but like 150, 200 ROAS, 1.4 to 2x. But we could see when we came in and used this report that those campaigns with a relatively lower ROAS were getting way more display and video compared to the other campaigns. And we could just see that money was being wasted. Yes, you think you want to do this from a reach point of view, but the machine is going to, as you said before, Google will happily take your money and waste it if it's just doing what you asked. If you say 1.5x is fine, it will find traffic that only delivers an average of 1.5x. But that average is often a little bit of shopping that props up that number and then a whole lot of crap that all averages out to 1.5. And it's usually a bit of a waste of time. But at least, again, we had the data to then tell a story around that to prove that and say, I think we should either stop these campaigns or increase that target ROAS so that we're actually getting useful traffic to your website instead of a whole bunch of junk. Because now you're remarketing to that junk and that's just dragging everything else down.
Yeah. Is there anything extra on this page that you would recommend in terms of data points to look at for the user?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do on this page is just to bring everything together for that campaign. So tell me what's going on over the period that we're looking at. And so this is real life data, but it's from last year. So that if you're looking at it and trying to work out who it is, and if you're their competitor, it isn't going to help you. It's old, but real data. But then over on the right-hand side here, what we've got is search categories. So we'll dig into search categories in a bit more detail in a minute. This is giving you data for the whole account. But on this campaign tab, it's just the search categories just for the campaign that you're looking at. You can choose how you want to sort that data. And we're, again, bucketing the data into 4 buckets here, kind of 3 and a bit buckets. But everybody has seen these blank search categories. It's kind of like other search terms on a search query report. It's basically data that Google is never going to give us for privacy reasons. And it's been interesting to see that proportion of blank search categories grow over time. Some campaigns will have over 50, 60% blank. And then because on the settings sheet here, we've entered a brand term, we can enter multiple brand terms if we want. We can then bucket all of those search terms that match or closely match the brand term, so we can see how much of our PMAX spend is going and what the performance is of those brand terms in PMAX. Maybe we've tried to neg out brand completely from PMAX. This keeps an eye on that and says, oh yeah, some of these brand terms are slipping through. Maybe we need to add more terms to those exclusion lists. And then everything else is obviously non-brand.
The one thing I did want to ask, sort of, the thing I like here, I see that you've got an average order value tied back to the search category. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So you can see at a glance like which ones are not doing well, which ones are doing very well, brand as you'd expect. I just love creating tools, data that just isn't readily available inside the Google Ads account. I have, for some people, added additional metrics to this. Some people like, conversions per impression or per 1,000 impressions or something like that, or value per click. There's all kinds of these different metrics that different people use. That's one thing I've learned selling a script, is that everybody has a different way of running account. Having AOV there, I think, is a useful measure, especially because with search categories, we don't have any cost, right? So we can't do ROAS. We can't do conversion value. We have conversion value, but we don't have cost.
No. All right. Well, if you want to jump over into the categories page.
It's much the same. Again, everything is sortable. So, if we want more or less data in here, if you want to sort by something else, you can. The same 4 buckets, but now just being able to sort of visualize this across all of the PMAX campaigns running in an account. And then this doesn't look as impressive with only 3 campaigns. Looks quite good when you've got 15 campaigns running, but this is giving you the similar sort of thing. So now we're looking at, this is the percentage and this is the absolute down here. And this will follow whatever you've sorted your table by. So I've sorted by impressions here. I'll leave it on impressions. Yeah. This is then just showing me at a glance kind of what that donut chart was showing me before, the percentage of impressions for each campaign rather than for the campaign as a whole. And then if I really want, I can dig into the absolute values, because this is useful for comparing things, but then also, does it matter? This is giving you context. If I've got a campaign with 7.5 impressions, it doesn't really matter. I shouldn't be spending any time analyzing that. There's always the 80-20. But that's pretty similar data to what we've looked at.
Okay, great.
When I first started doing this, I had a whole separate sheet for this, and I've ended up putting them both together now that the script runs fast enough to do it. By the way, this whole script will take generally about a minute to run and update this. It's obviously free to run scripts. You can just have it run at 3 o'clock every morning, so that whenever you come to the sheet, it's there, update, ready for you to work on.
I'm going to be honest, this sheet is where I start to get really excited. So, and I know it gets further, but this is some of the data that I do really like to see.
Same. I like this. And look, all credit here to Product Hero. I saw a post of theirs a couple of years ago where they split products into these 4 quadrants. I've just added my own 2 as well. So essentially what we're doing is setting a threshold. And again, you can control all of this on the settings. So you get to choose what these thresholds are. For products that have spent more than whatever threshold you set, we're saying, okay, those products fit into the costly or profitable buckets. For those that spend less, they're going to be down here. And then we've got a performance threshold. If it's better than our performance threshold, then they're profitable, or flukes, because maybe they've converted once or twice. They haven't spent much, but they're doing well. But again, do we really want to spend time analyzing those? And then buckets for no conversion. So they're spending money, but they haven't converted. That might be interesting to look at, particularly if we look at sorting that by impressions, say, or by cost. And then zombies, those products that are getting impressions, but not a single click, therefore not spending anything. Very popular of recent times to add a zombie campaign. So this is going to make it really, really easy to tag all of those products, stick them in a separate campaign. And we found time and time again in my old agency that when we did that, it was 10, 15% instant free, well, not free because you're paying for it, but additional revenue, just by taking these products that are sort of, I like to think of them as being squashed down by these products that Google knows about, that it has high predictive value over that it basically knows what's going to happen when it shows these products. And then there's all of these other products down here, like almost 10,000 of them. And that Google's going, well, I'm not going to show you very often because I'm just not very confident what's going to happen next. And so they kind of get squished to the bottom. But then you take those out, stick them in a new campaign with a little bit of budget and say, go on, show me what you can do. They often perform really well.
That's one of the biggest ways that we've used and being able to scale different brands and businesses is purely by that. Looking at, I mean, you've labeled them in. So if you look at that top screen, so you're looking at Flukes, I think the ROAS there was 18.2. Is that right? Yeah. So, way outperforming. So the way that we would structure this is that we would generally look at those product categories and move them into a separate Performance Max campaign. We do have to take some considerations into account. So because you do want to take search terms and those type of things, like what type of traffic it's going to get. So you're not duplicating across campaigns. But we would look for these products which are performing high. And essentially what we're asking, and this is the way that we would always phrase it, is we know this product converts, but it may only be spending $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
But it's converting it's nearly double the next, the profitable ones. So we go, okay, well, if we increase that spend from $1,000 on this collection of products to say $5,000 a month, does that ROAS come back to 12? Does it stay at 18 or does it go back to 9? Whatever the way is. But for me, that is one of the easiest ways and the biggest opportunities.
Just spending more on them. Yeah.
Remembering, once again, this comes back to the discussion we had at the start of the success with Google is working out these are the rules and the parameters that Google has given us. Let's now work it within the system to our benefit. And for me, that's one of the easiest ways. Budget is spent at a campaign level. So Google isn't showing these products because they're not profitable. Google's showing the products because the traffic volume's down. The CPC might be slightly higher. So if we've got a ROAS goal set at like 500%, it's going, well, I'm going to hit 500%. And the easiest way to get there is through other categories. Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons for it, but that's one of the other ways that we've gone about it.
And I think most advanced Google PPCers understand this, but a lot of beginners won't. And that is that it's not the actual product that you're really getting data over, right? What Google is saying is when I show this particular product, people click it, and then those clicks lead to sales. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a sale of that product, but it leads to sales. And so this can be hugely valuable when you have particularly smaller SKU kind of sites for a business to know, hey, this is one of my best performing products. In terms of when it shows this ad, people end up buying and my profit's really high.
Yeah.
But they may not realize because they don't look at that product and go, that's an important product. And actually we're about to run out of stock because it hardly ever sells. Well, hang on a minute. Don't let it go out of stock because then your best ads will suddenly stop appearing and that's going to be a problem. And we see this all the time, but we've got 4% of our products here are responsible for 55% of revenue.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, like half the profit, just about, is coming from these Flukes, half the profit from these 500 products here. But we've got, 3,000 products out of 14,000 that are driving all of the gains here. So I just love being able to see this a few different ways, being able to understand that relationship. And do I have also a few products that are spending a lot? Sometimes I'll see a big red chunk on this, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I want to dive in to the costly products, maybe sort those by cost and understand which products am I spending a lot of money on, relatively speaking, but that aren't performing? Maybe do I take those products out, put them in their own campaign and crank the ROAS target and say, well, Google, you can show these products, but if you do, I need you to work harder for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always, whenever we've looked at people who are using Performance Max and they're not seeing the results, it's down for two reasons. Usually the first reason is because it's just general bad campaign. So no thought to the product titles, no thought to the landing page, pricing wrong. So put that aside. But for campaigns that have got those things right, the other area where we see the biggest room for improvement is they've got the structure of their account wrong. So what I would say by that is they're just spending money in the wrong places. So they structured their account to spend money in the wrong places. And what this data gives us the data to actually see, okay, this is where we're spending the money. This is where we're getting the profit. How can we structure our account in the right way? And because you're looking to solve the problem of we want to spend more money on ads where we're getting the highest level of revenue. And that's what you're looking at focusing on. So if you can just reduce the wasted spend and increase the profitable spend, you're instantly going to see more revenue and more profit in your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to finish that thought too, I think a knee-jerk reaction, a bit like with keywords, like we've all been audited by another agency, and you'll get these stupid reports saying, oh, we would have saved you 35 grand because all these keywords that didn't convert last month or last year or whatever, we would have taken those out of the account. Well, that will kill an account, right? Because that's going to kill volume over time. The knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh, look, 7,000 products here that have spent 20 grand that haven't done anything. We'll just take those 7,000 products out of the feed. Well, don't do that, because if you do that, your flukes will disappear, because there'll be zero conversion products this month, but there'll be flukes next month, and then there might be zombies the month after. But that's why you want to analyze a wider period of data. So you have the option in here. You can set the date range. You can choose how many days data. You can choose the thresholds for all of these things. You can set your COGS so that you can choose, show profit that's more meaningful to you. That's the only place that COGS number is used, by the way. But yeah, I just like looking at it from a bunch of different ways. But one thing that I found with this, especially for an account like this, you've got 14,000 different products. Looking at the data of individual products when you've got 14,000 feels a little bit too granular. We're like maybe just digging into the weeds a little bit. And so I wanted a different way to view the same data, and that's Engrams. I love Engrams. We've all used Engrams for years for keywords and search query reports. And so what this is showing, in the same buckets that we're used to, it's now pulling apart the titles of those products that we saw on the previous screen, pulling out the individual words, the individual Engrams from those products, and then aggregating the data at an Engram level. So now we can see maybe how all of our products that contain the word girls are performing over time compared to, say, all of the products that contain the word boys, which is here somewhere. There we go. Or how do our colors perform? How do brands that we sell perform? And then being able to visualize that again on here. And again, being able to go through your different buckets and say, all right, show me the products that are performing really well. How many people are searching for that? What's the volume of this compared to performance? So it's just different ways to slice and dice the same thing. You can, again, choose what you want to sort by, how many rows of data, which changes how many bubbles there are on the chart, so that you're in control of this and you can find the insights that make sense to you.
And Mike, the reason I like this one is, I think we mentioned it before, is that if you are, one of the big mistakes I see when people do make the decision to add in additional performance max campaigns or split out campaigns, if they don't think about the search categories. And that's what I like about this, is that it allows to make sure that we're not going to have multiple campaigns essentially targeting the same type of search term. So that's what I really like about this, is it's another, we've just been able to find, it gives us a safe check to go, yep, these campaigns are still playing within their rules of what keyword structure, because the first product they click on is not necessarily the product they buy. So that's why you want to have those search terms grouped together that are converting together, and it just makes it for a cleaner account.
And so this is Engrams of search terms. And then once I had that, I wanted to be able to compare those two different things. So this comparison tab is now comparing essentially how we talk about things. How often does that word appear in our product titles based on impressions, compared to how are people talking about this? What are they searching for? So what are the Engrams in the search terms? And so really here I'm looking at top left and bottom right, classic kind of 2x2 matrix type thing. If I'm seeing stuff up here, that means we don't talk about it much, right? So relatively speaking, it's not in our products very often, but lots of people are searching for search categories at these, not search terms, but search categories that include that word. So Hydra Suit up here, Rashi, another one. We're not calling our products that. I think this particular retailer calls them board shorts, or they've got different terms, and maybe they're not calling it Rashi, maybe they're calling it Rash Vest or something. But people are searching for Rashi. And so there's potential up here to say, if we called our products what people are looking for, maybe Google's going to show them more often, or maybe they're going to get clicked more, maybe they're going to convert more, because that relevance thing, right? BBC 101 of...
I think since the introduction of Performance Max, that's probably been one of the biggest things that has been lost in all of this, is a lot of people have just forgotten about the importance of your product titles. So one of the things we're always doing is before we were using this, having to go in, it was a bit messy. You could kind of get it inside of Google Ads. You're going into insights and getting search categories and exporting it out into a sheet. And it became pretty cumbersome.
Download with loads of multiple lines on there. And
but the reason why we would do this is because we'd do some tests in different product categories, and sometimes we were seeing like just skyrocketing growth in impressions because we'd just taken the time to really match. And this is the way we explain to the client is, yes, we call it this, you call it this, but your users, your clients are calling it a certain thing. So you want to make sure that you're matching what the person is searching. And the beauty of it as well, there's been a couple of classic cases where if you're first to the market with that and your competitors are still calling it what you're calling it, if you move outside the box, you're going to get more relevance. And just remembering that especially inside of Google Shopping, with your product listings, that keyword relevance is coming from your product titles, and it's still highly, highly important and one of the best optimization actions you can do inside an account.
And even just a simple thing like maybe the client doesn't want to change it completely, even just swapping the words around, because we know that, the user often only sees the first 15, 30 characters. The machine kind of looks at the first 70 odd characters of what you've got available. So just being able to move those around is a simple way just to like tiptoe into that test if they don't want to do a full change on all of those product titles. And for those more advanced marketers that are using supplemental feeds, which are hard to find in Merchant Center Next, but there's all the data, so you can load this up as a supplemental feed, tag all of your products using custom labels, and then that's how you're able to do all the funky stuff that you've been talking about in terms of that categorization of campaigns and structure. That just makes it really, really easy to do.
If you just go back to that Engram tab again, because the other thing that I do like about this as well is, this one that we want, is that it also allows you to see if there's any new search themes coming up. Now, some of the interesting data that has come out is that obviously searches with more than 5 words in it is growing by 1.5 times X of searches with under 5 words. Also as well, what we are seeing that, still 15% of any searches are new. Already, we're getting reports, I was just on with some clients today, that in the US, they are starting to release the chat-based search in the Google user experience. Once that happens, the number of keywords in a search is going to grow. So it'll be initially a Google search, and then it'll go to conversational. Being ahead of the curve on this and being able to find any words that users are starting to use and getting them into your product titles is going to be a big plus.
I actually have a free script on my GitHub, this PMAX search terms. So the main PMAX script does search categories because there's less of them. There can be a lot of data in a search term script. But it was an email newsletter from Sam Tomlinson a few months ago that talked about this, like the number of words. So that new version of that actually charts that over time. So you can chart the number of words, average words in a search term over time for your PMAX campaigns. That's all in that free script. Great. Yeah, it's a really important point. Yeah, as people start talking this rather than typing, they will probably be a bit less lazy.
Yeah. All right. So the main takeaway for me on this page is all about just being able to really make sure that you're matching off and your product titles are actually matching what people are searching. Biggest thing that I like about this is as well is it's actually a visual representation to give the data to the client. So even if there's some resistance in changing the product titles, you can at least give them the data. And I'm sure we've all had the classic case where, if they don't take on our advice or recommendations and then 3 months things have gotten worse, you can remind them, hey, remember this data, it's all here. How about we break it down and do it a test on maybe 2 product categories or 3 product categories and see the results?
Yeah, I was doing some AI tests on this. I was trying to get AI to categorize all of the Engrams so you could bucket those even more to have different levels of zoom. So it would go through here and find brands versus colors versus local terms and all that sort of thing. But then it was a little bit too cumbersome. That was about a year ago. It'd probably be better today with some of the faster, cheaper models. But I remember very clearly a client that had all these crazy colors like fuchsia sunset, and this data would be fantastic for that to say you're calling stuff fuchsia sunset. No person in the world has ever searched for that as a color for clothes that they were looking for. Just call the bloody thing orange, but as you say, at least you then have data. Just a couple more quick ones to go.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go into the assets.
This is a fairly new report. Again, you have control over that. And if you want to see bigger thumbnails, we could just go in here and just make each row a little bit bigger. But pulling in thumbnails. I'm working on an AI report at the moment that will actually look at the images itself and then write a creative report. Like the ads with models in are doing 50% better than the flat lay images because AI can see images now, being able to see like how are my different assets performing. And then also, again, back to what we were talking about before, does it really matter if video cost as a percentage of all PMAX is 0.2%? And yes, some auto-generated videos, you can see the thumbnails for them here, they are showing, but we're talking about $10 for this whole 4-month period. So it really isn't a problem. We don't need to worry about that from a brand safety point of view.
The other thing I like about this as well is obviously this is giving way more data than what Google gives us of the scores of, best, good, and low or poor. We're actually able to see on the asset level which is the not only the highest click-through ratio, but also highest ROAS scores. So yeah, so that's really powerful across all assets. So not on your headlines, your descriptions, but also on your images and videos as well.
Yeah, and again, obviously sort that however you like, rows and so on. But yeah, I like that context as well. I found that useful. And then lastly, an asset group report, which yes, you can get this in the interface, of course, but the benefit of this was early on for lead gen businesses, because the early versions, the free version of the PMAX script, which is still out there, if you're a lead gen running PMAX, you won't see any asset group data at all. But Google have updated the API now, so it can be useful just to be able to see that. Of course, these are all paused because we're looking at data from over a year ago, but just being able to see that, and again, see patterns in that, I found that quite useful.
And with this one, for us, what we would do in here as well is that this is where I found the power in taking the time to set up separate asset groups within a Performance Max campaign, because what that would then allow us to do is if we were looking at so let me just have a look here at your ROAS there. So what I would look at through there is we would look at an asset group and look to see how that's performing within the campaign. And if we see same pattern on where you were before with the mere top performers, that's generally where we would, if we saw an asset group that had different search terms, that had a higher ROAS but a lower spend, that would actually become the structure so we'd essentially just pull out that whole asset group and put it into its own campaign. And that was one of the biggest things that we saw skyrocketing in results as well.
By the way, there is a more advanced version of this tab. I haven't got it shown on this one. It's actually hidden at the moment, but it is sort of hidden away in the advanced settings down here. If you want to see all of this data at a campaign level, you can, but that's like an optional extra. You have to turn that on. It doesn't cost any extra, but you just have to turn it. It costs in terms of time. So it's off by default, because otherwise the script might take 2 minutes to run every time rather than a minute. And I found it confused people, because there's a drop down at the top here where you choose your campaign and be like, well, hang on, this number doesn't match this other number. And so I've made account level be the default, but if you really want to dig in and aggregate at different levels, then you can. The last thing I'd love to talk about is then analyzing all of this data, right? So you've got all of this data on all these different things, product data, Engrams, landing pages, all this stuff. Landing pages is on there. I don't know why that's hidden as well, but that is there as well. So you've got all of the data at a landing page level. I know why it's hidden, because I just reran the report before we jumped on with that option turned off, and so it's deleted all of that data. All good. Is this sort of AI sheet? Now, this now happens automatically. This used to be this extra thing that you had to sort of bolt on and try and link the two. The two get linked automatically. So in your main sheet, after it creates it, it'll say, this is the URL of your Whisperer sheet. And in the Whisperer sheet, it says, this is where I'm getting the data from. But we've already done the work to pull all of the data in all of these different reports, to sort it, filter it, all of that stuff's been done. So why recreate that? Now we just want to point this tool at all of our data and say, these are the products reports that I would like to run, please. You can choose which model you're going to use. You can choose, I've just sort of abstracted away all of this. In fact, that's actually Ron now. That's now using 4.0 mini. It's okay. It's all good. Put your API key in here so that then you're in control of this. And I love this. My wife's Italian, so I've been getting PPC reports in Italian. And then you come down here and Google actually not only give you the report in Italian, it gives you the audio report and it's singing away in Italian with your Google.
It'd be great if you could get an Australian bogan voice over there just for the Australian viewers out there. Some would argue you could model it off my voice. I'm far enough up north there.
So then what this is essentially doing, you've got a prompt here. And so I've written a whole bunch of starter prompts for you, but you are absolutely welcome to go in to tweak this. You can also choose, you may have noticed, eagle-eyed people may have noticed here, who's the report for? Is it for internal or for the client? And if you say, oh, it's for the client, then you can change this prompt. My client name is Martha, and she really cares about these collections and these products. Make sure to mention those in the insights that you create. So it then is going to take this prompt and the prompt for the report and the data. You choose how much data from your other sheet, push all of that together, chuck it over to the AI, and it's going to come back with an AI written report based on the prompt that you've asked for. And it costs a whopping 6 or 7 cents to do that. So they're not perfect yet, but what I'm building this for, 2 reasons. One, just to inspire people of what is possible with AI today, but also for where we are probably going. No one knows, but where we're probably going with AI or a GPT 4.5 or even 5, when this thing is just as good as that 2-year person in your agency and is writing really, really good output, this is going to be amazing. But for now, it solves the blank page problem. It may not be perfect. I've added things to the prompt recently, like give me 5 questions that I might want to ask of this data with some follow-up analysis. So it's just, again, sort of giving you new ways to think about it. And the last thing, and I'll shut up, expert mode, which I'm really geeking out over at the moment, but expert mode runs all of this like we've just talked about, creates a thing, then has a different model look at the output and say, this is what you asked for, this is what you got. It writes a critique of that, evaluates it, gives it a score, and writes a critique of how the prompt should have been better. Then it uses that to write a better prompt, which it stores for you in here. So here's a better prompt that you might want to use next time. And then it reruns the whole thing and gives you an even better report. And you can come in here and say, yes, I like this. I'll tweak that expert prompt a little bit. Use it next time, please. And so you can go round and round and round, getting better and better and better and better. Because that's one of the biggest tricks I've found with large language models is you ask the questions it needs from you in order to write the prompt that you go then use for something. Rather than you sit there and think about, how do I actually write this prompt? Have it write the prompt for you, give it a few words and say, now write me the big ass prompt. That generally is going to get you better output. So I've been having a lot of fun with that, like making this like self-improving AI model, essentially.
I love this because I think any agency owner or freelancer would know that the first week of the month can just be, you feel like, I felt like I was back at university because you're writing report after report after report. And that streamline model is amazing.
If someone has that output, by the way, you can chuck that in there into the prompt and say, this is the format that I want these in.
Yeah.
Off you go. And the more examples you give it, we all know, the better it will do. So,
no, it's great. Hey, Mike, been an absolute pleasure having you here as well. Look, for everyone watching this video, if you go down into the description, I'm going to have all the information on how you can get extra data from Mike, but also how you can actually go through and purchase this paid version, which is so powerful for all of your Performance Max campaigns. It's been an absolute pleasure having you all here again, and I look forward to seeing you on our next video. And thanks again, Mike.
Thank you. See ya.